Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to this special city council meeting. We're going to be filling the Ward 8 vacancy. If the recorder, please call a roll.
Councillor Stapleton.
Here.
Councillor Anderson.
Here.
Councillor Phillips.
Here.
Councillor Leung.
Here.
Councillor Gonzalez is absent, and in his place is guest Councillor Hamadi Jackson. Councillor Hoy.
Here.
Councillor Nordijk.
Here.
Mayor Bennett.
Here. Okay, if you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Councillor Hoy, approval of the special meeting agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move approval of the special meeting agenda.
Are there any additions or deletions?
No.
Okay, we're going to be conducting interviews and hopefully appointing the Ward 8 City Councilor to replace Councilor Jim Lewis.
Mr. Mayor, vote on my motion first.
If you want to.
City recorder would probably appreciate it.
Yeah.
I'll second it if it needs seconding.
Thank you. Councillor Stapleton.
Aye.
Councillor Anderson.
Aye.
Councillor Phillips.
Aye.
Councillor Leung.
Aye.
Councillor Gonzalez is absent. Councillor Hoy.
Aye.
Councillor Nordijk.
Aye.
Mayor Bennett.
Aye. Okay, thank you, Councilor Hoy. Okay, we'll move on to then our special orders business, our interviews. We're going to interview 4 finalists for the position, and that will be Jess Barton, Chris Cummings, Martin Hepp, and Mickey Varney. You've been given some possible questions. Give us an opportunity to meet each of these folks. And I want to just take a quick look at one item. Okay, so with your, unless there's objection, yeah, Chris?
Not an objection, just a quick question. I think that one of our candidates is not here. Did he withdraw or is he not? Do we know?
Well,
Mr. Hepp?
he's not here.
And we haven't heard anything regarding a withdrawal.
Thank you.
Okay. So we'll hold him till last in terms of some of the initial questioning. I'm just going to run through each of the counselors in ward order. So Councillor Stapleton, you'll get to go first. We're going to start with Jess Barton. Mr. Barton, would you like to take just a moment to introduce yourself, and then we'll launch into some questions.
I will introduce myself, Jess Barton. I've been living in Salem since 1990. Lived in Salem 2 different times before, and I moved into Ward 8, 1993. So I've lived out here since then. I'm a retired attorney. I still do legal consulting work, primarily with the Oregon Criminal Defense Lawyers Association, but also I'll be working with the Multnomah County's Justice Integrity Unit. It's been set up by the new district attorney, fairly new district attorney named Michael Schmidt. And I also work as a volunteer position with the Department of Defense. Actually 48 years ago today, I graduated from boot camp in Fort Jackson, South Carolina. I was in the Army for 6 years, a couple of years as an active duty service member, and then in the reserves. And so I hadn't worked with the Department of Defense since 1980, but I started working with the Department of Defense again 2 years ago. So that's what I'm doing these days.
Great. Councillor Stapleton, you want to kick us off?
Sure. I I have one question that I've been thinking about for all of you. So Jess, I'll ask you first now. And that is that one of the big things that we're working on at council right now is an upcoming bond that we're going to be voting on, hopefully all the residents voting on in November. But how familiar are you with this upcoming bond? What kind of projects do you see this bond needing West Salem money to go towards? What are the projects that you're excited about that West Salem's needing? And then also to get this across the finish line, we as a council are really going to need to champion this cause and be the cheerleaders for this bond. And how do you see yourself doing that in West Salem to help us get the votes we need to get this bond passed?
Are you asking me that question?
Yeah, Jess, we'll all be asking you questions here for a few minutes.
Oh, I'll tell you right now, my answer to that question is I can't possibly answer that question. I didn't aware that there'd been this bond. So probably with that right there, you're going to say, oh, you don't want me on the position now. Right? I don't know. I don't get the Statesman Journal. I gave up on that newspaper some years ago. I don't get the news. I get the Washington Post. But what is the bond about? I would be interested to know, of course. I'd like to know all about it, but I don't know a thing about it. So therefore, I'm probably going to be voted no by you on that.
No worries. Thank you so much for answering the best you could.
Don't worry, Jess, most citizens here don't, and they probably haven't covered it in the Statesman anyway, so.
Is that right? That's amazing.
Well. Okay, who's, let's see, Tom, do you want to ask the next question?
Thank you. Mr. Barton, another thing that we are interested in that also has long-term consequences is the climate action plan that was passed, accepted by the city, and we're moving forward with a council and staff subcommittee to start to implement parts of the plan. Can you just state your views on climate change in general, and then the importance you would say for the city of Salem to do something about it?
Look, I work in the world of criminal justice. I've been doing criminal defense work since 1987, starting in Washington. The types of topics that you're talking about are things that I'm not going to be aware of in any kind of detailed manner. I mean, I could talk about climate action plans. I'm glad there is one. As I mentioned in the materials that I submitted, there's just sort of like a push against climate action plans by other organizations. I don't see any really, what's the point of the city of Salem trying to have a 100% climate action plan? What's going to have, you're going to have no carbon emissions in the city ever again. That's not going to make any impact whatsoever. It's not going to make a dent in climate change. Of course, that's going to be the case. But what does that is that with the city and local governments, state and local governments pushing for climate change, addressing climate change, it could actually make the big difference in terms of just changing the template across the nation. That's how that works. I mean, I was thinking about that just the other day. I was reading the other day about Utah lowered its BAC maximum level at 0.05. Now, think back to some years before, like the early 1980s, the BAC maximum was 0.10, and it was lowered then by 0.08 by Oregon, several other states. But so many states started dropping the BAC maximum to 0.08 that it finally became a change in federal law. And that's what could happen now as more state and local governments address climate change in an effective way. It'll eventually just sort of percolate up from the ground, I guess you could say like the grassroots up, but it's really how federalism works. So that eventually then the state would just, or certainly Oregon would become involved in climate change policies. But as more and more states do adopt climate change policies, and they will eventually, then finally the federal government will take over and look at what the city of Salem has done, for example, and try to do the same thing that the city of Salem did, only do it on a national basis. that's what I see. But beyond that, I don't have the details of whatever the climate change or climate action plan in the city of Salem is. It's not something that I've been working with. It's not something I would have ever had the time to work with. I'm certainly know that other applicants for this position, I'll bet you do, or know a lot more about it than I do.
Thank you, Trevor.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Bennett, and thank you, Jess Barton, for applying for this volunteer position. At the risk of having you repeat yourself, I did read the questionnaire, but this is kind of your opportunity to summarize. What are you hoping to accomplish? What are your goals that prompts you to seek out this interim city councilor position? Yeah, just give us a chance to kind of get to know you and just your top, 1, 2, maybe 3 issues you'd like to try to get accomplished before the end of the year.
Well, to me, the biggest policy or the biggest issue for the state or for the city to be dealing with is homelessness. Now, I recently I saw a memorandum submitted by the acting city manager to the council, a very detailed policy program has been developed. I mean, it's extremely complicated. I mean, I read through it and I look at that and I think like, that's really something, but I can't look at that and think I have any expertise on that. It's too much. It would require some weeks, maybe even months of time to really understand the whole thing. But when you look at the problems that are in this city regarding homelessness, it's something that I've been noticing for really going back 15, 20 years. First started coming across that problem, even coming across the bridge in, chariot buses, and finding that there was actually homeless camps on my side of the river. So that was that. I mean, that's a big thing. But to me, the biggest thing to me, and a topic that I mentioned in my materials was some kind of change in how the criminal jury system would work in the municipal court that you have. Right now, the state law has a system in place that effectively precludes at a great percentage, probably about a 400% racial disparity in excluding African-American Oregonians from participating in criminal juries, including would be grand juries, which wouldn't exist in the municipal court system, but it would exist in the circuit court system. I don't know if municipal court system is required to follow state law. My guess it does. And the city should take steps to try to change the state law to eliminate this system that's in place that works the same way that it's a matter of keeping people off of juries based on their race, in the same way that certain individuals are precluded from voting. You see that happen in southern states particularly. You see people disenfranchised in the southern states. Oregon doesn't disenfranchise people in the sense that you can't vote, but you're not allowed to participate in criminal juries. And that's part of the citizen participation process. So that should be something that the city should address, that I would really want to address as soon as possible. A really small project, which I mentioned also in my materials, is, I've been using Orchard Heights Park for many years, playing tennis there, slowing down on tennis. It's kind of a problem for me because I have a knee issue, but less of a knee issue or knee problem arises from playing pickleball. But the pickleball courts were built, they weren't built properly. So I actually talked to Councilman Lewis many months ago about improving the pickleball courts at the Orchard Heights Park. And he said he would take care of that, but it hasn't been done. So that would be something that I would want to address.
All right, thank you very much. Councilor Leon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you as well, Mr. Barton, for joining us today and for your interview. So my question to you is, so the city, as you know, has been focusing a lot on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and bringing a lot of the lens, specifically the DEI lens, into a lot of the policy and decision making. What is your understanding of DEI, and how would you bring that in to the forefront when it comes to policy making?
Could you please repeat that? Please repeat your question? I didn't quite understand what you said.
Sure. Yes. So my question is about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it's a two-part question. The first part is, what is your understanding of diversity, equity, and inclusion? And the second part of it is, how would you bring in that lens if you're selected as the city councilor for the rest of the year in the decision-making process?
I'm just going to tell you this. Back in 2004, I spoke to the Uhuru Sasa Club at the Oregon State Penitentiary. Uhuru Sasa means freedom now in Swahili. So it's a club, it's the African American Inmates Club. I go meet with these guys talking about law change that had just changed like a month before. Federal law had changed in June of 2004. And I managed to make that change happen in Oregon in September 2004. And in October 2004, I meet with the Uhuru Sasa Club talking about this change in the law. People, African-American inmates, I asked them, how many of you here are serving aggravated departure sentences? And this is what the whole new law change was. I went about aggravated departure sentences. So people, instead of getting a 30-month sentence, you get a 60-month sentence, or a 5-year sentence, you get a 10-year sentence, something like that. Well, the thing that I saw, I asked the men that day, how many of you are serving these aggravated departure sentences? And about 40 to 50% of the attendees raised their hands. But I knew at that time, statewide, the percentage was 18%. So now I know that there's this racial disparity that exists in the prison system because how the aggravated departure sentences are imposed at a far greater rate on African-American defendants than on all other defendants in the state of Oregon. Going ahead a few years later, I do the crunching number based on information I obtained from the Department of Defense, that at that time, African-American Oregonians were serving in prison at a disparate rate of 700%. 700% compared to the imprisonment rate of Caucasian Oregonians. 700% disparity is something that had to be addressed, and I've been addressing particularly constantly since 2007. That's what I deal with the most. That's what I deal with constantly. That's why I go back to the whole issue I talked about a few minutes ago about excluding African-American Oregonians from serving on criminal juries. That's where the problem lies. That's the primary problem that the state has in terms of racial disparity. And any other way I look at any other problem, like, do you have that kind of, is there a racial disparity with respect to Native American Oregonians? Yeah, there's a 100% disparity there. If you're talking about Hispanic Oregonians, is there a disparity? It's very small. It used to be about 35%. Now it's only maybe about 5 or 6%, something like that. But we still have this very high racial disparity among African American Oregonians. It's no longer 700%. It's now 400%. And the reason it shrunk is because in 2007, the legislature increased the penalties and increased the focus on methamphetamine crimes. Methamphetamine is also called white drug. White people are used at a far greater rate than racial minorities. And now that the laws were changed drastically to increase the penalties, increase the sentences for methamphetamine laws, we end up seeing more white people in the prison system, which shrinks off the racial disparity from 700% down to 400%. So you would think, well, it's not so bad anymore. It's not 700% anymore. It's only 400%. No, 400% is a horrible thing. And that needs to be addressed. And that is constantly being addressed. And that's something I've been constantly being addressed since since 2004, when I met with Uhuru Sasa for the first time. I've met with him many times. I'll soon be going out to the state penitentiary to meet with the president of Uhuru Sasa, a new president out there, because the former president has just recently released from prison because he was granted clemency by Governor Kate Brown. So I managed to meet up with him, though, had a Denny's restaurant up in Woodburn just a couple of months ago. That was pretty good. So anyway, that's the topic that I address. If you want to talk about racial issues, equity issues, things of that nature, that's my topic. That's where I go to every time. There could be others as well, of course. But when you think in terms of wanting to address problems, you have a series of problems, and if you can, you want to address the worst problem of all. Deal with the worst problem of all. And we're talking about racial equity. The worst problem of all is how this state imprisons African American Oregonians at that rate, 400% disparity. So that's my view on the topic that you've asked me about.
Well, thank you very much. Hamadi Jackson, our guest counselor. Hamadi, would you like to ask any questions?
Sure. Once again, thank you for allowing me to sit in, and thank you, Mr. Barton, for being here. I understand your passion with the issue that you have just talked about, but I would like to circle back to the homeless crisis, if we could, and if you have any ideas whatsoever on alleviating that over the next coming year or the rest of the year.
Sure. I mentioned that in my written materials. Again, you could just say right off the top, I was just talking about the worst problem of all. And you say, well, what's the worst problem of all in terms of homelessness? I think what I could see is that maybe 1/4 of the homeless population are people with mental illnesses. It tracks us back to the 1970s. I remember this happening. I remember my sister living in a boarding house with a bunch of women that she was living with when she was in this, going to this business school called Merritt Davis. Remember her going? And then all of a sudden, all of her roommates are being moved out, and they're being replaced with people who had been in the state hospital, because that was what was going on. This deinstitutionalization process was going on. And so they were changing this boarding house that were for young women was now being changed into a boarding house or a new place for people, a more a kinder place for mentally ill people to live, rather than having to be housed in the state hospital, which practically was like a prison. In many ways, it was like a prison. It fits right into the Goffman's the total institution and sociological principle. So in any event, that's what went on, and now we see this today. You see the statistics. I've looked up the statistics. Typically 25% of the homeless population are folks with mental illnesses. So what needs to be done, and what was supposed to have been done when there was this deinstitutionalization process, was to have these group homes. But of course, that costs so much more money to have a whole lot of group homes instead of just one big mental hospital, where there could be that sort of, there could be, economies of scale. There aren't economies of scale when you have a whole lot of group homes, but it's a more humane place for people to live than be living in what's really almost like a prison, which is the state hospital was, and it still can be. So that's the issue to address first, until you go into the next level or the next problem with the homeless population.
Thank you.
At first, and then move on for the next thing, what that would be. You could reduce the homeless population by 25% by addressing all folks who have mental illness, unable to find themselves in decent homes. And if they could be moved into group homes, it costs a lot of money. It's going to cost a great deal of money, but that's going to be what finally reduces, could reduce the homeless population by 25%.
Thank you. Councillor Hoy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you, Mr. Barton, for applying for this position. I appreciate it. I was hoping you could describe for us your participation or involvement with your neighborhood association and what role you see neighborhood associations playing in city government.
No, I've never participated in the neighborhood organization. I'm not really aware of.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Nordyke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Mr. Barton, and thank you for your service to our country. I have a two-part question. What is the number one cause of homelessness? And the second question is a hypothetical. The city of Salem has received a $10 million grant to address homelessness. How would you spend the money and why?
Well, yeah. First question was, what's the toughest level of homelessness?
No, what's the number one cause of homelessness?
What's the number one cause? Yes. Yeah, mental illness. The 25%. That's the number that I just keep saying. I'll look that up. 25% of the homeless population of people with mental illnesses. So they're $10 million to work with. Use that to build $10 million worth of group homes for folks who are homeless but have mental illness problems. 1 and 2.
And the $10 million, Mr. Barton, you want to take a shot at how to spend that?
Sure, spend that on group homes for people living in, for group homes for folks who are homeless and have mental illness issues. Mental illness being that's what's causing it, that's what's creating the homeless population among the homeless population. So if you can come up with $10 million, and $10 million, is that going to be enough to reduce the homeless population by 25%? I don't know. How many people can you have in one group home? Will it be like 8 or 12? There'll be staff. How would it be done? Would there just be like a house like where my sister lived for a while in 1972, where all of a sudden there were like 8 women in that house, 8 young women, and all of a sudden there's one young woman, and then there were like 7 men who recently had been released from the state hospital. Well, that would be one way to have a group home. So just a house where folks can live, and there'll be staff there that ensure that the treatment is dealt with properly.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Well, let me see. Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Barton. We may end up coming back to you. We'll see how this goes forward. Mickey Varney. Why don't we start, Mickey, give you a chance to talk about your background, your interest, and then give the council a chance to ask you some questions.
Okay. Can I take 2 or 3 minutes to do so?
You can take what you need. You go ahead. We got all evening here.
Well, I appreciate that because I don't know who all read the application information. So thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Well, good evening, Mayor Bennett and council members. I'm Mickey Varney, for those who don't know me, and I appreciate the opportunity to interview for the Ward 8 vacancy this evening. I have worked as a high school teacher and a salmon biologist. I've served as a city councilor in Dayton, Washington for a couple of years, and for the past 8 years, I've been an active leader in the West Salem Neighborhood Association. I've volunteered on multiple city projects and task forces, and I've served as a member at large on the Salem Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. I believe my professional background and my volunteer experience in Salem means that I'm ready to hit the ground running to address the challenges our beautiful city is facing. As a community educator, I know how to reach out to people and inform and engage them about issues. While my technical background is helpful in analyzing the problems that come before a city council, it's also taught me how to use adaptive management approach to problems so that I can be flexible and responsive to the needs of our community. As a former city councilor, I experienced the ins and the outs of running a municipal government and addressing the problems that arose at the time. I developed a skate park, negotiated a contentious compromise prohibiting smoking near our playgrounds, and I worked alongside federal government entities to address conflicting mandates, which were truly impacting the city's ability to protect its citizens and properties. These were implemented after Hurricane Katrina and all the impacts on the levees and the new restrictions. I've had an amazing opportunity to learn and work with the West Salem Neighborhood Association as a member its chair, and chair of our Parks Committee. I worked with my neighbors to apply for and receive money to improve our parks in West Salem, and I have developed lifelong friendships and connections within the community. The majority of decisions that impact West Salem involve land use issues. I've read through traffic analyses, received and reviewed many land use applications, and I've testified at planning commission meetings, and you all have seen me at city council meetings. It has been an invaluable experience to be involved in land use issues because it's not only taught me about what West Salem needs, but it's allowed me to work with the members of our community to build consensus and support for West Salem. My deep connection to West Salem and my decade of community service allows me to draw upon a very strong network of community support to advocate for West Salem that I love already. As we continue to deal with the new issues that pop up, I really feel the best path forward to serve my community is as a Salem City Councilor, where we can collectively address the larger issues and advocate for even a better and brighter future for West Salem. So what you're looking for tonight is someone who can competently and confidently represent the people of West Salem and advocate for their needs while working with the rest of you councilors and leading the city. I understand what the job entails, and I am ready to fill in this spot. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for coming down, Ms. Varney. I didn't ask this question of Mr. Barton because he was retired, but I'm looking at the time commitment needed for the council, and the material we sent you said 20 to 30 hours. And I will tell you, for nearly 5 months, a couple of years ago, I actually kept track of my time like attorneys do, and I averaged 35 hours a week. So I may be a slow learner, but it's a big time commitment. And I'd like you to talk about your ability to commit the time to really study the issues and represent your constituents, and then contribute to the council meetings.
Well, I do realize it takes a lot of time. I must admit, I was always the one, when I was a previous councilor, who always showed up in the meetings with all my sticky notes all over in paper back when we moved, back in those days when we used paper. I ask a lot of questions. I look at what is behind the words that I'm seeing on paper. And I do take, although I said maybe 20 or 30 hours, I realize it's longer. I did track your posts on Facebook and did not find it unreasonable at all, because some weeks are going to be like that. Some are not. I realize I do work full time. Thank goodness I have a flexible schedule where I can work things in and hopefully participate in some of the activities during the day I would like to, but I won't have the freedom to do that as much as someone that would be retired. But in terms of the research, the participation in the meetings, the participation in community events in the evenings, I really think that I will have no problem with doing that.
Okay. Councilor Phillips.
Thank you, Mayor. And Mickey Varney, thank you so much for applying for this volunteer position. I read through your questionnaire and found your answers very compelling. I guess I'm going to ask a similar question, perhaps just a bit more focused. What's your kind of #1 priority for the finish of this year as the interim counselor for Salem? And then maybe second, what would be your priority for representing Ward 8 specifically?
I'm just thinking toward the end of the year, well, I am very interested in the community infrastructure bond that's going to be coming up in November. And I think being involved in the process of selecting and prioritizing the projects that are going to be on that and getting that information out to the voters and supporting it. I'm very hopeful that in regards to West Salem, that we will be able to include something for the construction of Marine Drive, the contribute development of it, because I know it's been something that's been in the process for many years, and we really need that in West Salem as an alternative to Wallace. Improving our parks. Let's see. I think another really big part is the legislature has appropriated I think $6.5 million to Salem for different projects dealing with our unsheltered. And I think that's going to require some oversight. And I feel that is crucially important as well.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Leon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Mickey Varney, thank you again for applying for this opportunity and for your time tonight in this interview. And my colleagues had asked you some very important questions, and it's all part of what it is to be a city councilor. And so my question, you've had a chance to hopefully see some of the policies that we're going to be working on for this upcoming year. Which of those, if you could choose just one, is the one that you would like to be able to spearhead or like really be engaged in?
Probably the climate action plan, because of my environmental background. I would imagine my interest in the Goal 5 planning inventory, which is coming up, helping the subcommittee prioritize things as they work through those 180 strategies to try to determine what we're going to work on, but really my emphasis on the environment, reduction of greenhouse gases, so that we can move towards some of the goals identified in the climate action plan. I'm devastated by the loss of tree canopy that we lost with the February storm. We lost about 17% of the canopy we had. And before that storm hit, we were actually meeting our tree canopy goals and even setting higher goals. And so that's a real priority for me too, is to get some of the things in place so we can address that.
All right, thank you. Hamadi Jackson.
I'd like to thank you for your time and thank you for coming in tonight. I actually don't have any further questions for you, so I will pass it on.
Okay, thank you very much. Councilor Hoy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mickey, for applying for this position. I appreciate your time tonight. I'm going to ask you the same question I asked Mr. Barton. You kind of addressed part of it, but I want to ask everybody the same question. So describe for us your previous involvement or your involvement with your neighborhood association, and what role do you see neighborhood associations playing in city government?
Well, I've been an active member in my neighborhood association in multiple roles. I mean, as chair, as a member, and probably the longest time as the parks chair. The neighborhood associations, you would not, I know you understand, but the general public doesn't understand all the land use applications that come through a neighborhood association and how crucial they are to the development of the neighborhood that the neighborhood association covers. It has just been overwhelming, but a great experience to learn what we have in our codes, what we don't have in our codes, how the planning commission reviews stuff, and what a neighborhood association and its members, the community, can do to ask questions about these applications and to appeal certain decisions. We have that ability. I mean, the neighborhood associations are that link between the city and our neighborhoods, and that's what makes it so important. And I really encourage members of neighborhoods to get involved in their neighborhood associations, because we do a lot, from parks to land use to lots.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Nordyke.
Good evening, Ms. Varney. Thank you so much for your application. Same question for you. What is the #1 cause of homelessness? And the hypothetical. The city of Salem has just received a $10 million grant to address homelessness. How would you spend the $10 million and why?
Well, to me, the number one cause is the housing crisis that we have in our community. You know, housing and the cost of living keeps just skyrocketing, and there, we don't have the affordable housing, and there are more and more women and families and the elderly who live on fixed incomes that are losing their homes every day. That to me is seriously what is creating the majority of it. For us, for me, I think what we really need to do is to provide to the best of our ability with our resources to assist our most vulnerable, both the ones that have mental health challenges and the ones that have become recently houseless, that would really benefit by being provided transitional housing and the opportunity to get back into the workforce. And that's one of the things I'm so excited about, all the things that the City Council has implemented in the last couple of years as we've tried to address this. You know, the managed micro shelter sites, the safe parking sites, the warming and cooling centers, food share, increased low-income housing. All these things have come on board to really help. And I think, as I also said, the money from the legislative session for Yaquina Hall, the Navigation Center, other things. I mean, all these things are coming together. So your question about 10 million, what would I do? I would keep adding to many of the same strategies that the city has already put into action. In discussions with DJ Vincent and Gretchen Bennett, you know, DJ has talked about the success that they've had at the micro shelter sites and the fact of how many individuals have been able to get into that positive transition out of those temporary micro shelters. I mean, it was 37%, I think, for the Portland Road site. And DJ's group, Church of the Park, has a goal of a 60% within the 90 days after folks move into that housing. And so I think with the funding and the continued interest and momentum that we have, I think we can continue to be successful.
Okay. And Councillor Stapleton.
Thank you so much. Thank you for applying. You've already answered the question that I had. I was hoping to ask everybody the same question, but you've already answered that. So thank you for that. I will then ask you this. Council really considers itself a team. And I would say even they are family, at least to me. How would you become a member of that team?
Well, we're all here. Not only as volunteers, but we all bring very different perspectives. And to me, what makes a team strong is that diversity and the diverse opinions, because I may see something as just a scientific analyst where someone else might see that other piece of the picture. And so that's why it works so well. It's like, well, I think from those of you that read my stuff, I mean, I played sports all the way through you know, through middle school and high school and into college, and I really enjoy them. And sports, I played team sports. And if you want to attain a goal, win the game, do whatever it is, you work with your teammates and their strengths to develop a program that's a winning program. And so when it comes to working with team members, it's the delegation of things that they are really good at working with, and it's also being appreciative of their expertise and their skills and putting it all together as a leader to accomplish things. And so that's what I feel about team building. Thank you, Councillor Stapleton, for the question.
Thank you. Okay. We'll move on then to Chris Cummings. Chris, do you want to introduce yourself, and then we'll ask you some questions?
Sure. Thank you very much, Council, for having me. I'm looking forward to this opportunity to serve the city. And a little bit of background about myself is I was born here in Salem. and I've lived now in West Salem for 17 years. And after stepping into my father's IT company and been doing that for 32 years, I've got a little bit of time on my plate here to look at how I might be able to contribute back to the community in which I grew up in. I've been married to my wife, Kim, for almost 30 years now. And I have a married daughter that is also a graduate of West Salem High School. And during that time of living up here in West Salem, we were very involved and active in high school activities over at West Salem. And, one of the things that I think I can contribute is just taking some of the several years of experience in the business community and bringing those things into the council. And one of the things that I would like to do is get involved now at this time. It's a city that I call home, and I wish it to remain my home. And I always want to strive for a better place to live right here in Salem.
All right, thank you. Councilor Phillips, you want to lead off?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chris Cummings, for applying and for being here tonight. I'll ask the same question I asked last time, kind of focusing in this interim session for the end of the year. What's your main priority for Salem? And then, second question is, what's your main priority to try and work on specifically for Ward 8?
Actually, there's quite a good pairing with that two questions into one. Homelessness is a big issue. And that will be one of the top issues that I will be taking care of inside of my time at council. I want to look into those things that are causing it. I want to help appropriate the funds that have been coming in through some of the grants and whatnot, and be able to put those into places where they really, really make a big difference. West Salem is one of the hardest impact in the unsightly things that we see coming and going over to the bridge. And so therefore, that's the reason why I call it part of the same thing. But it is some things that is not to be taken too lightly. You got people that are coming from diverse backgrounds. And so I think there's a lot of research and a lot of things that need to be dug into to be able to really get at the heart of that issue and be able to bring something to a change, of course, rather than what we've been doing over the last few years.
Okay, Jackie Leung.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And hello, Chris, thank you again for, being here and pretty much in your interest in this position. So I have a two-part question, and part of it's actually a question that Councillor Stapleton asked earlier on in the first round of interviews. So my two questions to you are, number one, how do you keep track of city news? Question number two, what do you know about the bond measure?
City news, I actually talked to a number of different people in the community. So you can see things in print. There are like Salem Reporter and Statesman Journal that highlight some different things that come across my path. I do pay attention to those. But more importantly, I want to continue to rub elbows with those that I meet in my area and seeing what is news to them, and being able to focus on the things that may potentially be underreported and be able to tap into that. And on the bond measure thing, I understand that the bond is coming up here in November, and that is just definitely necessary. And we'd be able to strengthen our infrastructure and be able to make some improvements on roadways and fire equipment and our parks. So I also do believe that Marine Drive will be an asset to that plan as well.
Okay, Hamadi, do you have any questions?
I do, thank you. And thank you, Mr. Cummings, for being with us this evening. I would like to just ask you if you could further elaborate on, once again, with the unsheltered or homeless, like what specific steps or ideas do you have that you'd be looking forward to implementing going forward?
That is a very complex question, and one of the things that requires is more research, I think, into it. There's a number of different agencies, a number of different things that we could be doing. but is trying to coalesce those together and for the better good. And there's a number of different things that are going. DJ was mentioned earlier. He's got a great program going on out there. And there are people that really do want to get out of the predicament that they're in. And I think if we can look at how we can actually provide a path and get people on a better trajectory for getting back into a house, a place to live, and to be able to get them off the streets, we're going to be wanting to look at plans and infrastructure and some of the processes on how we can help fund that and how we can track that to completion so that we have success.
Councillor Hoy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Cummings, for applying. I appreciate it and appreciate you taking the time to talk with us tonight. I'm going to ask you the same question I asked the other two candidates. What is your involvement with your neighborhood association? What role do you see neighborhood associations playing in city government?
To be honest, I've been out of the neighborhood association scene since the bridge was in the highlight of everything over here in West Salem. And I had some other things to attend to since then. But I do want to get back into that scene and work with the neighborhood association to be a conduit to be able to connect the neighbors into the city council. And I would be looking to them to gather much needed feedback so the city council can be connected as possible with the community and keep the community in touch with the city council. One of the things that I think is really important as any neighborhood association is to have a huge conduit between what's being done in downtown as policy and the people that are actually in the neighborhoods, and making sure that people understand those policies and what's coming down and have them have a forum for which they can provide feedback and we can bring that back to council.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Nordyke.
Good evening, Mr. Cummings. Same question. What is the #1 cause of homelessness? And what should the city do with a $10 million grant to address homelessness? And since you have the benefit of going last, I'm sure you've had an opportunity to listen to the responses thus far. I'm looking for specifics from all candidates in response to these questions. Thank you.
From what I've been able to conclude is the #1 cause of homelessness is affordable housing. And when people are down on their luck and they're trying to fight to pay the bills, then they lose the roof over their head. Everything else kind of dominoes after that is basically what I've been finding out there. And so we need to be able to combat the affordable housing and be able to put houses out there that people can get into, house their family, keep a job, and be a vital part of society.
And the second half of the question, the city of Salem has just received a $10 million grant to address homelessness. How would you spend it and why?
The programs that are in existence right now do need funding. We need to probably appropriate that money to go to programs to be able to educate people and to be able to pull them off the street is the main goal at the moment. But we also need to maybe look at ways to where we can maybe take some of that money and put it into housing so that it can become more affordable too, so that we can stop the problem before it begins.
Okay. Councillor Stapleton.
Thank you so much. Another thing that I was hoping to ask today was about the Our Salem plan. This is another big project that the city of Salem has been working on, and it will be coming before council this summer. So it is something that you would be voting on if you were into this position. So how familiar are you with the plan? And also, how can you help staff and city council get this project across the finish line?
You got me on one thing that I'm not as brushed up to speed on. So if it's actually Our Salem plan, that is one that I haven't looked into yet. And I look forward to digging into that and lending you my opinion.
Thank you so much.
Okay, and Councilor Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you again, Mr. Cummins, for all the candidates for coming down. I have a short question about the hours. You heard me talk to Ms. Varney about that, but my main question is about another plan the city has, and that's the Climate Action Plan. What is your view on the climate crisis we're in, and how do you think the city should respond?
I think the city needs to take a look at that and actually be a city that is actually paying attention to its resources, but not at the not by doing additional taxes and things like that for housing. I think that the environment needs to be taken care of, and that we all need to play a part in how we take care of our environment, and that we need to be doing the best as we can possible. But I want to be very cautious that we don't put that ahead of other goals that we're trying to achieve.
Thank you. And the hours question, do you have the time to devote?
Yeah, it's remarkable what this position does take, I'll tell you that. It is amazing, and my hat is off to everybody who gets into this scene as a volunteered position. It's crazy. I do have some of that time available now that my company has been able to grow, and I can be able to dedicate some of the time now into this area to be able to keep up with you guys.
Okay, thank you. Well, did Martin Hepp join us?
No, he didn't, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So we have 3 candidates. Does anyone have any other questions they didn't? Councilor Stapleton mentioned one she didn't get to ask, and we have still our 3 candidates left. Do any of you have any questions? Yeah, Tom.
Mayor, I just wanted to mention, even though Mr. Hepp didn't appear tonight, he was still recommended by the committee, so the councilors could vote for him if they chose to do so.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Okay. For the 3 counselors who are here, the 3 potential counselors that are here, are there any questions you didn't get to ask that you would like to? Councilor Stapleton.
Thank you. I really would like to hear from Mickey and Jess about the Our Salem plan. I think that that's, you know, I hadn't thought about it until I got into the meeting, and I really think that this is so important as we head into the summer months. So I'd love to hear that from them. And the question again was, you know, are you familiar with the Our Salem plan, and how can you help us get this project across the finish line?
Great. Okay, Mr. Barton, would you like to take a shot at that first?
Yeah, I'll take a shot at it in a very different sort of way. Our Salem plan, look, I'm sure I could work with it. This is the thing. When I was working at the city of Coos Bay, I was working for the city manager. One thing we had at that time, we're talking about the 1980s, during a very nasty recession. The timber industry down in Coos County was terrible. Unemployment rate was about 15%. It's awful. We had big plans. We wanted to try to improve the economy by improving the tourism industry. Now, look, we have 2 different cities, Coos Bay and North Bend. And what you really want to do is that there was a Chamber of Commerce they came to Coos Bay, came to the Coos Bay City Council and said, spend your money on tourism. You try to increase the tourism industry. And our point was, well, it can't just be us. We can't just be the ones doing it. And then North Bend's just a free rider. And the Chamber of Commerce folks were just saying that, look, North Bend they'll never pony up $1. Well, it came to me. I contact the North Bend city administrator. He didn't call himself city manager. He called himself a North Bend city administrator, Al Roth. I had actually worked for him 5 years before, when I worked in the engineering department back then. I call him up and I tell him, look, would you be willing to talk to your mayor, talk to your council, and could we form a joint tourism committee? 2 people from each town, and then we'd have a joint tourism committee. We both put in the same equal amounts of money so that nobody gets a free rider. And then we're spending twice as much money instead of just half the money that the city of Coos Bay could be spending. So he said, I'll check with the mayor. So he checks with the mayor and he comes back to me about 2 hours later and says, the mayor says, it's a go. Now that happened. That tourism committee still exists today. And that tourism committee exists today because of the work that I did back in 1982, 1983. So if I could have done that then when I was like 27 years old, I wasn't a lawyer yet, I hadn't gone to law school yet, I'm pretty sure I could work on the program. And I think I worked very effectively on the program that Councilwoman Stapleton just mentioned.
I want to help out here just a bit. Our Salem is the Salem Comprehensive Plan and
Yes.
Zone Code, that whole. Do you want to add anything in land use planning, your views in land use planning?
In what sense are you talking about? What give me some kind of
details. We are redoing our comprehensive plan in Salem. We're looking at how this city is going to grow, where the streets are going to be. I mean, we can run through the whole thing. It'll be it's the 20-year comprehensive planning process.
There I am. Took this class in law school from Ed Sullivan. He's one of the most brilliant land use planning.
He was my dorm counselor. I knew it.
Pardon me? He was, yeah, he was a great guy. Took the law school class from him, got an A. I worked for Senator Jack Dorland Ripper. 1981, I worked with him. He was probably the most expertise-oriented land use planning state legislator at that time. And there were very few legislators at that time really understood land use planning. There were a few. John Kitzhaber would have been another. But Jack was the most proficient in terms of, among the legislators, most proficient in terms of land use planning. So would I be able to be involved in land use planning process? Absolutely.
Okay.
That's something I know about.
Great. Good. Councilor Stapleton, did that get to where you want to go?
It did. I would love to ask Mickey the same question if it's possible.
Right. Go ahead. Mickey, do you want
to?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for the thanks for the question, Councilor Stapleton. Wow, the Our Salem project. I remember how overwhelming it sounded when I first saw Unique Kim. Oh, I think it was at the 50 Plus Center, even before COVID, when we were still meeting together. And yeah, the Our Salem Area Comprehensive Plan, as Mayor Bennett said, it's going to cover transportation, it's land use planning. I've been really impressed at how the city of Salem has brought in the public input throughout the process. That hasn't meant that there haven't been some contentious issues that have come up, especially in the West Salem Neighborhood Association, because of the impacts on development in our West Salem area, whether it be where hubs are, where multifamily is being put in, some of the changes from multifamily to a mixed use, some of the redevelopment occurring down on Second Street in West Salem. I mean, there are all those things going into it. And then once we get this first plan adopted for the comprehensive plan, then follows the transportation system plan, and then the parks master plan, and then, as I mentioned, the goal 5 planning. So we've got a lot of stuff, a lot of wheels moving and things going into place that are going to determine the future of Salem, not only for the next 20 years, but for generations to come, and the look and everything. So yeah, I've been really happy to see the public involvement. You know, you can't make everybody happy all the time, but giving them a chance to have a voice is what is important. I don't remember what the rest of the question was.
It was simply, how can you help us get this project across the finish line? And you answered it a little bit, I think. But feel free to answer any more if you have something else to say.
Well, it's continued education and let people speak up. We have an appeal. Well, I can't talk about it. Anyway, we have something coming forward that has to do with a particular development that was going to be zoned R3, which would allow for way too many people to come in. And we were, our neighborhood association said,
I'm going to have you slow down here, Mickey. We'll be taking testimony on all that in the future, I think. I want to be
Oh, okay,
cautiously.
thank you. Yeah,
Yeah, you
I'm
bet.
sorry about it. Let me.
No, that's okay.
Okay. Then leaving that one out of it, I guess the whole thing is traffic is an increasing issue in West Salem. And a lot of this land use development stuff does impact our traffic as well.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Sorry
Anyone
about
else
that.
have questions? Wanda, there. Chris, did you want to follow up on any of this?
Yes, I'm sorry. I was thinking that somebody was asking a specific plan called our Salem, and I have heard of the comprehensive plan, and I am in favor of that, and I would like to help push that through as well. There is a lot of community feedback that's already got started on that, and I want to be able to be involved in that and help push that through and take a look at our infrastructures especially. And but it is a very impressive, shall I say, comprehensive plan that is being put forth there, and I would be glad to weigh in and participate in that.
Great. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any? Yes, Councillor Phillips.
This is a process question. So at the point where we do transition to voting, I just would like to kind of get a reiteration of like how to expect that process to work, and then what tonight is considered a majority. Is it just 4? Because
as soon as we're done with this questioning part, we'll go to that. It's a very good question. I was going to have Tom take us through that. Okay. Any other questions? All right, very good. Well, thank you very much. You were very responsive. Really appreciated you coming and sharing your views and your tremendous interest in serving your community. It's really heartening to see folks show up on this kind of activity. So thank you. Tom, you want to kind of help us out on Councillor Phillips' question? He'd like to go through the process real quickly and how we're gonna accomplish this tonight.
Thank you, Your Honor. It looks like there'll be a 2-part voting process. What will happen is all 4 candidates are under consideration. If no candidate gets a majority of the votes cast, then you take the 2 biggest vote getters and you vote again. And the voting continues until such time as somebody gets a majority of the votes cast. So since we have 7 folks today, 4 votes would be a majority.
Okay. So a person gets 4 votes on the first ballot. They are the city councilor for Ward A.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. One thing I want to just point out, we have 2 candidates, active candidates for this city council position, and one applicant who's not. If you haven't had a chance to figure that one out, I'll just share that with you, that my understanding are Mickey and Chris are candidates, and Jess has declared he is not a candidate and would not have been one if he'd been asked. So he's offering himself as a placeholder. So that sometimes makes a difference, I think, in terms of how councilors want to vote on this thing. Okay. Any other comments on this before we move forward? Okay, Tom, what do we do next?
And Mayor, if I can, this is Amy. Yes, I can go ahead and when your name is called, please state the name of the applicant that you're voting for. We can get started anytime.
Okay, you guys all ready to go? Anyone not? Okay, go ahead then.
Councillor Stapleton.
Mickey Varney.
Councillor Anderson.
Mickey Varney.
Councillor Phillips.
Mickey Varney.
Councillor Leung.
Mickey Varney.
Counselor Gonzalez is absent. Counselor Hoy,
Mickey Varney.
Counselor Nordike,
Mickey Varney.
Mayor Bennett.
Let's just make it unanimous. Mickey Varney, congratulations. You'll be our next counselor for Ward 8.
Wow, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's quite an honor.
Well, you did all three of you did a very good job, and really appreciate you all coming in as prepared as you were to discuss this with us. So thank you. Is there any other comments for the good of the order? Anything else we have on the agenda we need to follow up on?
And Mayor, I apologize for interrupting. The city charter requires that I announce the tally for the vote.
Okay, why don't you go ahead?
In fact, the vote was 7 votes for Ms. Varney, and so she is the interim counselor.
Okay. Sorry, I jumped the gun, Mickey. There's one of the things you'll learn. The city attorney gets the last word around here, so we'll be sure to keep that going.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, then if there's no other business before the council, we are adjourned.
For more videos and for more information, go to capitalcommunitymedia.org and follow us on social media.